So today we're going to be having a discussion with two wonderful gentlemen. I'm joined here by
Eugene Herbert. I'm the CEO of a company called MasterDrive. We drive change in behavior amongst our drivers on the roads.
Hi, and I'm Phillip Hull, the co-founder of the Road Safety Foundation.
With these two gentlemen that join us here, we're going to ask them some questions because they are at the top of their game with answering some of the most important questions. So, gentlemen, I've got something important to ask you. With global trends and local trends, what are some of the highest contributing factors that lead to road accidents in South Africa, and how do they compare to what's out there in the world?
People who drive on our roads and who get a license believe that now they've got a right to drive on the road, whereas actually when they got their license, they've accepted a responsibility, but they don't meet up to the standards. And of course, Phil here, he sees it in real time when he's on the roads.
I would add two other factors, a lack of education. Law enforcement, unfortunately, is not in the education phase, and we need that. We've got to have, they should be out there protect and serve, they should be educating the motoring public. We're not getting that out of them, unfortunately. It's not in their portfolio. So I think that's important, and lack of preparation. So many of the vehicles that we're seeing on the road are just not maintained adequately. And silly things like wiper blades. Over December, we had a whole bunch of rain that came in, 3 or 4 days of heavy rain, and the number of accidents we had, and the one driver said, I couldn't see anything. He hadn't replaced the wiper blades. The wipers were working, but they hadn't been replaced. So preparation of vehicle, there's a number of factors, but I would think that's probably two of them.
I think we can lead on that. So the next point I'd like to ask is, what can drivers do to ensure that they are looking after themselves and being safe on the road? So maybe from a MasterDrive point of view, how would the road technicalities and car technicalities, what can a person do to be safer? And then on top of that, from a physical point of view, Phil, maybe you can add on to what a driver or person on the road can do to look after themselves when in a vehicle to be a lot more competent on the road.
Let me respond in the following way. You know, the cars that we buy today are technologically at their peak. Yes, they can get better in some instances. So all the technology is there, but it doesn't mean because the technology is there that it's an excuse for you not to have good road discipline. And what do we focus on is attempting to change behavior. Many people have got the skills, so they know the mechanics of driving. But for example, and there's so much talk about telematics, how you can manage your drivers. And remember, a great percentage of the work we do is at a corporate level. And it's actually very good because through them we now manage to filter down to the driver who's got a spouse, who's got children, and therefore the good things that we seek to in indoctrinating them almost filters down through the process. But if I can just go back to the driving component, when we look at the vehicles on the road today, people are so distracted. You know, the last statistic I had from another insurer was that, and they have an app on the phone, that 60% of the accidents that they record were as a result of people using their phone. Now, we know it's dangerous, so why can't we not use our phone? And I think it boils down to a great extent that the South African driver and South Africans in general feel they've got the right to do these things. You mustn't take away my right. But interestingly, and Philip sees it, obviously people when they're involved in a crash, when they realize the consequences of that bad behavior, and that's the two things that we need to do in our training. Motivate you to change a bad behavior and then create the ability. And then if there's a trigger that can sort of bring the two together. And we are seeing improvement, so please, it's not all bad news, but regrettably the statistics say otherwise.
Yeah, I think keeping safe in the car, briefly, three things. One is preparation of your vehicle. Second one is knowledge and the acceptance of road legislation. So obviously observing those rules. And the third one we just touched on it now, distracted driving. Distracted driving, we all look at cell phones and say, yes, it's a huge problem. But distracted driving must include fatigue, drinking and driving, having people in the car that you're conversing with and not focusing on it. That's all distracted driving. So distracted driving for me is a target that we need to look at. It's a focal point that we need to look at and just say, guys, let's make you a little bit more aware. Changing something as simple as changing a radio station on your car, 2.5 to 3 seconds, your eyes are off the road. I can guarantee any of us, if we went out on the road at 120 kilometers an hour and we put a blindfold on, for 2 to 3 seconds, it would be pretty nerve-wracking. Some people's eyes are off the road a lot more than that. So for me, I would say those are the 3 areas that we should be looking at.
I think what's interesting about that is that, especially with Car of the Year, we're getting to see the best of the best and technology at its pinnacle with some of the cars that most of the guys have been testing. So I think, what are some of your highlights with some of the cars that you've seen here that you think has vastly improved road safety for users? Because cars are at their peak and they're helping pedestrians and drivers and passengers. So what are some of your standouts from some of the things that you think will make a big impact in road safety from a car point of view?
If I can share what we see, because not only do we see these cars here, and it's really great to be here. I'm glad you guys could support it. When we work with corporates, yes, they're buying the modern cars, and yet what we find is ignorance. Do you know how many people still don't know what ABS is? And those who know what ABS is think it gives them an excuse to drive almost recklessly because they've got ABS. So I would like to see that when there's a handover of vehicle, I mean, you get into some of these vehicles, if you've tested it before, you've had a week or so to familiarize yourself. I find I don't even get the opportunity to familiarize yourself with all of that. Now, what about a car that you're going to drive on an ongoing basis? If people understood very clearly all the advantages and why they were advantages, for example, sat-nav, that could be a distraction. But if you put the voiceover on, it can still guide you to you want. Now, that is also safe because it's going to take you in an area where you're not going to be caught up in traffic. You may not get smash and grab and things like that. So that's what we find at a technical level. Understand them, and then they can work to your advantage.
And you, Phil, any highlights from the car that you've seen?
Yeah, what I'm really pleased about across all the manufacturers, literally I've yet to find one that I would say is an exception, is even at the baseline entry-level vehicle, you've got amazing, all the vehicles now coming with ABS, all coming with, you know, the airbags, some more than others, but the fact is the basics are there. So all the cars that we have in this country, they really are, they're safe. And it's up to really the person behind the wheel. That's the only questionable factor. But the cars themselves, obviously the bigger the car, the more metal you have around you, that would make it a bit safer in itself compared to a very small car. But all the safety features are there. Eugene's comments just about ABS, we did a survey, an exercise about 3 years ago. 97 out of 100 people that we had invited to come along, particularly on ABS, we put up a pop-up on the road. And at 100 k's an hour, they didn't know it was coming. We popped it up in front of them, where they had time to actually brake and steer around the obstacle. 97 out of 100 went straight over it. So it means that 97% on that particular exercise of people, and arguably after seatbelts, the most important safety item on a car is ABS. And Eugene's comment is 100% correct. It's muscle memory. You've got to experience it. You've got to practice it so that it happens without you thinking. But if that is the factor, it's great having all these features, but we also must learn how to use them.
Well, gentlemen, thank you much for your time and also for the support in an event like this. It's always good to know about MasterDrive and what they do for initiatives like this, but also from your side, from the Road Safety Foundation. So we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you, and also to Old Mutual Insure for helping us be more educated. So we hope that you guys were informed, and we hope that you take a lesson from this to become a better road safety user on our roads.